One of the worst feelings that you can have when you run your business is if you feel trapped by it. We all have dreams when we run our business. It could be time flexibility that we want, or it could be freedom that we want, or it could be profits, it could be one or more of these dreams. But reality is oftentimes different from the dreams that we have, and sometimes businesses end up trapping us. We feel overwhelmed. We feel burnt out. Sometimes we don't even know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the business. We don't know what's going on in our teams. We don't know what's going on with our customers as well. And these are things that happen quite commonly in business. I don't know about you, but I created my business when I was a student. You might have come from a corporate job, or you might also have, started a business, right out of school. It doesn't matter. Today, we're going to talk about how we can super scale our businesses and what it takes to really get to the next level. So watch on. Hey everyone, my name is Alvin Po. Welcome back to the channel. In this channel, I put out videos like this to help you, the business owner, the founder, the entrepreneur, super scale your business and get it to the next level. I do this all from my experiences and lessons from the 20 years of entrepreneurship that I went through in super scaling my own business from $0 to $30 million. That journey was a perilous, arduous, difficult journey. It wasn't smooth sailing. It was a journey of ups and downs, and I learned things the hard way. Now I'm just consolidating and codifying all the lessons that I went through so that you don't have to go through them. And hopefully these videos will help. If you haven't, like, share, subscribe, comment down below so that I can interact with you and find out about whether these videos are useful or helpful to you. Now, the topic for today: how we actually super scale our businesses, what it takes to get to the next level. The key to this is by SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures. And this is an essential component of the systems that we need to grow and scale our businesses. So what is an SOP? I talk a lot about systems. SOPs are such a fundamental building block because SOPs are literally the steps that you take in order to get to a certain result. People tend to tell me and ask me what a system is, what an SOP is, but it's not complex at all. I tell my coaching clients that it is just a sequence of steps that get you to a desired outcome. That's it. Now, we don't have to be thinking too far for this. Let's roll back and look at a really simple example. This is an example that's very close to all of us because this involves cooking. I don't know if you cook. I'm by no means a chef, but I cook. And we can use a very simple dish for this, maybe scrambled eggs. So how do we cook scrambled eggs? If you have not cooked before this dish, then it's going to be something that you won't know how to prepare, and you would have to know the steps in order to do so. And so this is something that we need to break down in the SOP that's necessary to create this dish. In the kitchen, this is known as a recipe. A recipe is basically a sequence of steps. If you follow whatever there is in the recipe, you will get to the end result, which is a plate of scrambled eggs. Now, that's all that you need, but it is really difficult because it depends on how well the SOP was written. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to do a lot of cooking, and I would love the food that she would cook. One of my favorite dishes of hers is a spaghetti bolognese, and I always ask her, how do you cook it? Because I wanted to learn how to cook it. So when I asked her, I never got a definite answer. Like, tell me that, the pasta would be the amount of pasta would be approximation, and she'll use her hand, but she wouldn't tell me like exactly what or how to measure the amount of pasta. The amount of tomatoes used are really dependent on like what you feel like at the moment. She wouldn't even be able to tell me the amount of salt that you have to use. She would say use a pinch, but I didn't really understand like what is a pinch. Like, you could pinch quite a lot or quite little as well. So I couldn't understand. And it was very difficult for me to replicate that dish. In fact, it was almost impossible for me to replicate that dish. And so a recipe can't be like that. A recipe has to state in very definite terms what exactly you need, how you exactly prepare it, and what kind of equipment you require, and all those things, right? And when you have all of that in a recipe, it becomes something that someone else can follow, even someone who might not have cooked before, because it's just a logical sequence of steps. So that's the difference between a good recipe and a bad recipe. If you follow this, you would be able to create scrambled eggs, right? If the recipe tells you, hey, you need 2 eggs, and you need to crack them in a bowl and whisk them, and this is how you whisk, and you pour them into the pot or the pan once it's hot, and then start to stir it in a pan, and after that prepare it by adding a little bit of salt, pepper, or butter, right, in definite amounts, I guess. And once you do that, you would have your dish of scrambled eggs. This is the exact same thing that happens in business. Instead of recipes, we need SOPs for our business. And this applies whether it's marketing, advertising, sales, logistics, operations, whatever it is. If we want to have a business that is scalable, if we want to have happy employees, if we want to have happy customers, if we want to be a business that can navigate change, because change is always a constant, and if you want to be able to train people that join our organization properly and efficiently, we need good SOPs. So, what is a good SOP? Just like the scrambled egg recipe, it has to be clear, it has to be definite, but there is a sequence of steps that we need to consider before we prepare our SOPs. So, 7 steps involved in preparing an SOP. The first step is to really work backwards. I covered this in my book, Super Scaling. A lot of times we need to know what our intent is. In the book, I talk about it. I have the waterfall of intent. I have thinking about the end result in mind, and a bunch of other frameworks that you can use. So if you haven't checked out the book, go check it out. It's available on my website, superscaling.com, or in any major bookstore. Now, the first step of creating a good SOP is to really determine what the end goal is. If it's scrambled eggs, that's your end goal. If it's creating a Facebook campaign, that is your end goal. And so we need to really know what the end goal is. That is the first step. The second step is to choose a format. Now, SOPs can come in many different ways, right? Recipes are typically in text form, they're typically in bullet form, but it can also be in video form. Same thing for SOPs. They can come in a bullet form, they can come in a video, they can even come in a flow chart where you have a diagram with all the different steps, processes, and people involved, all pictured onto that diagram. Right? So it's really up to you to determine what's best for you, your business, your organization, the people that are consuming the SOP. The third thing is to really ask for input. We are not the only people involved in our organization, right? So if there are other people involved, we need to consider their input, especially if they are involved in that SOP, especially if they are involved with getting to the end result. So we need to ask for their feedback, their input, to see if anything is missing, to see if anything needs to be there. The fourth thing is to really define the scope. When we talk about scrambled eggs, it might be pretty simple, but there could be other dependencies. Dependencies such as maybe we need to go buy eggs if we don't have eggs in the fridge. And so we need to understand how to actually buy eggs. It could be as simple as going to the supermarket or buying eggs online and having them delivered. But in a business, it's sometimes a little bit more complex. If we want to create a Facebook ad campaign, perhaps as a ad manager, we need to work with the creatives from the creative team or whoever else is involved in actually creating that. And so that single SOP could have multiple branches and multiple dependencies. All that needs to be defined in the scope. Step 5 is to identify the audience. Who is going to be consuming it? Is it somebody completely brand new, right? The recipe for somebody that is a cook but doesn't know how to create a dish and somebody who has never cooked before could be different, right? If you have never cooked before in the kitchen, I would probably spend some time explaining to you what a pan is, what a pan looks like, the different types of pans available, right? Is it non-stick? Is it not? Is it stainless steel? Is Is it, ceramic, or what is it, right? And the different types of stoves and all that, right? So there's a lot of assumptions that I now have to explain before that person can actually make use of the SOP. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the case. Sometimes it's already a cook that already knows his way around the kitchen. He just needs to know the steps that are necessary to create that dish. Same thing in your business. Maybe the person is completely brand new, fresh, never worked a day in his life before, and now needs to learn something, right? Your SOP. In that case, the SOP needs to be a lot more detailed. But if the person has already got experience, then maybe they don't need that. Maybe what they need is just a simple bullet point list where you roughly explain what's going on and the important things to take note of, and the person will probably be able to do a good job, right? So that is identifying the audience and how the SOP would change depending on who the audience is. Now, step 6 is to actually write the SOP. It doesn't have to be complex, again, depending on how you want it. Just enough detail so that the right audience, the right knowledge, the right end result can be achieved. And step 7, probably the most important step of all of this, is to really understand how we need to revise the SOP. SOPs aren't set in stone. Once written, they still can be changed, and they oftentimes do. And that's why SOPs have got to be evergreen. We have to understand that the SOP created will change, will be edited, will be revised depending on changing market conditions, depending on whether Facebook ad manager changes, depending on whether our logistic partner decides to revamp their processes. All these things result in our SOPs being obsolete or having need to be edited. And so step 7 needs to be there. And so these are the 7 steps. With the 7 steps, determining the end goal, choosing your format, asking for the right input, defining the scope of it, identifying the audience, as well as writing it, and finally revising it. These are the 7 steps necessary to create a good SOP. Having an SOP, creating it, introducing it into a company is a bit more complex than that. And to get more information, I've created a page where you can get more information about how you can create your own SOP, look at examples of SOPs, and determine what's best for you and your organization. I'll put a link down below so that you can read more about it. So go click it and check it out. In the meantime, if you like these videos, please like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel so that you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. I want to hear from you, so comment down below letting me know your takeaways, whether this video is good enough or if you need more detail and that I can cover in a future video. Once again, thank you so much for listening and watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you soon.